Burke's on his feet. He looks up and gives me a grin and says,
"Hey dude, you too must be from Marin."
Marin County's A-OK, from Tam to Stinson all the way to MA. Fresh organic veggies in the market every day. The Dennis, Dylan, and W.
Welcome to the Run TMC podcast. That is the Run the Marin County podcast, a podcast about basketball in Marin County. It is brought to you by Encore Custom. Encore Custom is a sportswear design, house, and manufacturer of customized team uniforms, training, and lifestyle apparel. Their United States headquarters are located right here in Marin County with a shop and showroom in downtown San Rafael on 4th Street. They will customize uniforms or apparel for team sports, gyms, yoga studios, schools, or corporations. They'll do just about everything, including our own Run TMC branded apparel. You can find the Run TMC pop-up store. That is the Run TMC pop-up store at Run TMC Podcast 1, just the number 1, .itemorder.com. Run TMC Podcast 1, .itemorder.com. Our pop-up store will be closing on May 31st. So get your order in now. We've got a guy shirt and we've got a gal shirt, and they both have the all-time favorite Run TMC logo on the front and on the back. Check it out now at Run TMC Podcast 1. That is the number 1, .itemorder.com. Okay, this is season 2, episode 26. We are in a bit of a curry flurry of episode release as we wind up season 2. So this one, Dave, we are going to do by voice memo, and I'm going to give you the opportunity to intro this. But first, for anyone who has not had a chance to log on to the podcast for the last week, we have a number of great episodes that have dropped recently, including just last week, interview with Reed Nottingham and celebrating 50 years of the Pirate basketball camp at the high school formerly known as Drake. It's season number 50 for the camp, and there were some great stories from both Reed as well as other former coaches and players at the Pirate camp. So that was season 2, episode 25. This is season 2, episode 26, and I turn it over to friend and co-host David Lavin.
Thanks, Duff. Nice work. Hello, everybody. This is a great episode. We are joined by the Marin Sportswriter legend, Dave Albee. Those of you who are old Marin IJ fans, people who, like me, used to have that physical newspaper on your kitchen table in the morning as you ate your bowl of cereal, reading the sports section. I grew up reading Dave Albee's column. I remember his picture in the sports section. And he was 23 years a columnist, journalist for the Marin IJ. He covered a variety of different sports. He was not necessarily focused on just Marin high school sports. He would cover, the Niners, the Warriors, the A's, the Giants. He's been everywhere. He's talked to everyone. So he's got tons of great stories. And he reached out to us a while back when our podcast got going, very kindly introduced himself, and obviously we knew who he was. And so we were honored to sit down with him. He has a new book out called The Last One Out of Town, Turn Out the Lights. It's a great book about a high school basketball team in his native Maine, the Foxcroft Academy team from 1975. Obviously, different area than here, but same kind of themes resonate, and a lot of the stuff that we talk about in terms of the lessons learned from playing high school athletics and teamwork and leadership and dealing with adversity and overcoming obstacles, all that stuff plays out in this book. So go pick up a copy or, download a copy, I guess. Although, I've been finding, Duff, that I've been reading more physical books right now. I like having the book. So even though the Kindle and the phone and the iPad are great, I like having the physical books. So go down to, Copperfields and buy Dave Albee's book. I assume they have it. This was a really fun discussion. I will also echo what my friend Duffy just said about some of our recent episodes that we've had, including the most recent one with Reed Nottingham about Pirate Camp. Since that episode, we've continued to receive text messages and feedback from people. Brett Tavani just sent a really nice message to us saying that he enjoyed it and brought back memories of his old friend Paul Farabuff, who he battled against as a coach. They were best friends, but he remembered, playing in the coach's game against Paul during lunchtime of the camp. And he said it was kind of like an old school San Rafael versus San Marin game. Not a lot of offense and a lot of defense. So thank you, Brett, for reaching out. Mike Saya has been very kind to reach out to us with some more stories. Our buddy Dan Dibley was a big fan of the episode. Shout out to Mark Lewis, someone who was mentioned in passing. Mark is a great guy, fantastic former player at Drake, great shooter. He just was too busy, but he wanted to send in a voice memo, but didn't have time. But he said that basically everything that he could have said was covered in the episode. So just a really fun discussion and a great precursor to the celebration in July, as we mentioned, at Archie Williams 1-4, July 19th. Show up if you're a Drake or Archie Williams camp, Pirate Falcon camp veteran, or if you're just interested, or if you're just a fan. It'll be really fun to share stories in person with people. So please enjoy this discussion with Dave Albee. We cover a lot of ground. We just go through a bunch of neat experiences he's had as a sports writer covering pro sports teams. And that was back at a time when the IJ had the wherewithal, the budget, the staff to have someone like a Dave Albee go to, the Final Four or go to the Masters or go to the Olympics, whatever. So really fun guy to talk to, a great human, and we were honored to have him. So enjoy the episode. Duff, hope you're having a great week and looking forward to some more episodes coming up. We've got some great interviews that we've banked already, as we mentioned, and we've got a few more scheduled that are going to be super fun as we wrap up season 2. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy Dave Albee. All right, we are going. Dave Albee, great to see you.
Good to see you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Full disclosure, I read the IJ all through my youth, and I always would see your picture in that column in the IJ on our kitchen table.
Yeah.
So seeing you now, it's a good flashback for me.
Well, good. I'm glad that's probably what you actually had ink stain on your hands watching reading the newspaper.
Absolutely. Back in the days.
Back in the days when I actually meant something.
Kids' newspapers were like a physical thing. So we're very honored to have Dave Albee with us. Dave is a long time, 23 years with the IJ?
23 years, yes.
So he was a sports reporter, journalist with the IJ, and we're going to talk about Dave's experience covering pro sports, college sports, dipped into the prep world every now and then,
yes.
right? But beyond that, there are a lot of things that I didn't know about Dave, so we'll do a quick bio on him, and then we'd love to get into it. So 1972 graduate of Foxcroft Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Where's that, Dave? Maine?
So Dover, Foxcroft, Maine. If you were to look at the state of Maine map and put your finger directly in the middle of the state, that's where I grew up.
All right. So how far are you from Cooper Flag?
Cooper Flag grew up in Newport, which is about 23 miles away to the south.
Okay.
You have to basically go through Newport to get on the interstate. So he was growing up. In fact, I ended up, at one point, I discovered that I actually played baseball against his grandfather. I assume I struck out against him, but
probably.
But I saw a box score and he was pitching and I know I was playing. And
it's pretty cool.
So it's a cool thing. Yeah.
Awesome. So Dave, long career as a sports writer, award-winning sports writer and sports columnist. First big break, I like this. You were a clerk at a grocery store, and someone basically came in and said, you asked her if she was planning to cover the big basketball game that night.
That Saturday night, yeah.
And she said no, and then you said, "Well, I'll do it."
Yeah, that's basically how it came down to. And she was a customer at the grocery store. And I got to know her fairly well. She was a sports editor of the local weekly newspaper. So she would come in each week and I'd have a conversation with her. And she came in as one thing. And that year we had our basketball, the high school basketball team from my alma mater probably had its best team in 20 years. And I knew that, followed it. And she was fairly new to town. So we had a conversation. I'm literally putting her groceries in a bag and bagging them to take him out to a car. And I said, "You're going to the big game on Saturday." She says, "Well, I really don't know a lot about basketball." And I said, "Well, would you like me to do it?" And she's, "Sure, go ahead." And I mean, what if she said no?
Right.
We wouldn't be here right
Yep.
now. But she said, "Yeah, go ahead and do it." So I went down to the basketball game on a Saturday night.
Mhm.
Sunday I came home. I didn't have a typewriter, so I wrote out the game story longhand, turned it into the newspaper, her newspaper, the Piscataqua Observer, on a Monday. And on Tuesday, the editor of the Piscataqua Observer called me up and offered me a full-time job.
Wow. And how old were you?
I was 19 years old.
Okay.
So it was a career of either, being a sports writer and being involved in sports, which is what I'd love to do, or, basically doing the Campbell soup display in aisle 2 at the A&P grocery store.
Yep.
So it was pretty easy.
That was the sliding doors moment, right? What if?
That was it.
So long career. You've had freelance assignments with USA Today, Gannett News Service, the Sporting News. You've covered Super Bowls, World Series, NBA, NHL playoffs, World Cup soccer, bowl games.
Yeah.
So you've had an amazing career covering NCAA tournament, women's and men's games.
Yes.
We're going to get into that. So now you reside in Petaluma.
Yep.
You drove down to meet with us. We appreciate you being here. You're a member of the Baseball Writers Association of America.
I still am. Yeah, I'm an honorary member.
Honorary member. And you voted on player induction into the Baseball Hall of Fame and on the selection for college football's Heisman Trophy.
Yes, at the same time, too. And then things changed after I left the IJ.
Wow. And one of the things we'll cover, I'd like to maybe cover it at the end here, is you have a new book that you've written.
Yeah.
The Last One Out of Town, Turn Out the Lights. And it's near and dear to our heart because it's basically a story about a high school basketball
It's a high school basketball team, yeah.
in the 1970s in Maine.
Yeah.
Your Foxcroft Academy. So would love to talk about that. But back to kind of where we started here, you were kind enough to reach out to us. You heard about us. Marin IJ for 23 years. So when did you start at the IJ?
July of 1986. I had been working for a Gannett newspaper in Rockford, Illinois, and I heard about an opening at the Marin Independent Journal. And I was actually advised to go look at it. So I made arrangements to fly out here. I'd never been to the Bay Area before in my life. And if you've ever been to Rockford, Illinois, it's quite a change.
Yes.
So I came in, and I was not going to take the job. I came out here because it was the only time I had come to the Bay Area. I said, I'll check it out, go out for an interview, do the interview, and see what happens. And I came out, and I rented a car at SFO, and I remember driving up and cresting the hill above Sausalito, and I'm going, Jesus, this is incredible.
This isn't Rockford, Illinois.
And again, this is the first time I'm seeing it, you know, and it's like, wow. And then I go to the IJ, and the IJ at that time was located in Alameda Del Prado.
Yep.
And Joe Conti was the sports editor at the time.
Sure.
Joe still works there, but Joe was the sports editor. And I think at that time we maybe had a sports staff of maybe 3 or 4 people. And Joe takes me outside, and we sit down the picnic tables outside, and he starts telling me, okay, this is what we're going to do. They were going to launch their Sunday newspaper in 1986, and it was a high-profile project within Gannett. So they were basically putting together an all-star team of Gannett people and bringing them out to Marin. And I was one of the candidates to do that. So Joe's explaining to me, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're a 30,000 circulation newspaper.
Okay.
So we're going to travel with the A's. We're going to travel with the Giants. We're going to travel with the 49ers. We're going to travel with Cal. We're going to travel with Stanford. And I said, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
For a 30,000 circulation, this is unheard of. And I could, where do you sign me up for this, and just fell in love with the whole place. The interesting thing about that whole thing, was that the person who arranged for all my travel arrangements was an administrative assistant at the IJ at the time. She was the first person I talked to from the IJ. And when I arrived here for the interview, she's the first person I talked to or met in person. And then we ended up marrying her.
There you go.
So it's just an odd thing about that. So I guess destiny was meant to be, I guess.
That's awesome. So when you started with the IJ, what was your beat?
Well, basically they hired me to be the sports columnist here, and they wanted me to cover professional and college sports teams in the Bay Area.
Okay.
So I had the gambit of everything. Wherever I wanted to go, wherever we thought was necessary, whatever the season was, I was going. And I think the first thing I did was I did a column on the Giants. I looked at the Giants real closely and thought they needed to have a new catcher, and Lance Parrish for the Detroit Tigers was going to be a free agent. And so I wrote a column about that. But the actual first day of the Sunday launch on that Saturday, I was covering a Cal football game at Boston College. So, and that sports section, that first Sunday section, when we launched, I think it was 10 to 12 pages long. It was packed, and we only had 2 people on desk, and they put everything together. And that was a big deal for all of us, and all the hard work that went into that one section, because here it is, everybody. Here it is, Marin. Here's your first Sunday edition newspaper for the Marin IJ.
Yeah.
So it was a big thing, and so I'm jumping all over the place, and the 49ers were sort of at their height of beginning the Super Bowl run, so that was great. And Cal and Stanford were sort of making their run, especially Stanford's basketball team, men's and women's basketball team.
Yep.
Were doing really well at the time. The A's were starting their run in the late 80s and 90s, and the Giants, when the first time I went on a road trip with the Giants, I joined them on a road trip in Montreal, the old Olympic Stadium. And I remember Vita Blue, seeing him after the game, and he asked me where I was from. I said, Marin IJ, and he sort of like, Marin IJ is on board here? Like he couldn't believe that the IJ was actually covering a Major League Baseball team in Montreal at the time.
I mean, I'm just curious. So you say the IJ, like a 30,000 circulation. Like, what do you think at that time? Like, what was the Chronicle, or at that time we had the Examiner?
The Chronicle and Examiner, who were doing the same stuff I was doing, they were probably 200,000, 250,000.
Okay, so orders of magnitude.
And the paper I was working for in Rockville was a 100,000 circulation newspaper.
Yeah.
So, like I said, when I came up to think, this paper's too small for me, but they were doing stuff big time, and Gannett was spending money because it was a high profile project, so they were saying, okay, we're going to make a big splash here. It's basically what it came down to.
So as we were trading emails and texts before this, we sat down with you. One of the things you pointed out, because I'm interested in the idea of how kind of the changing landscape of local journalism.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And you said the great example of, the IJ back in the day.
Yeah.
Would have had somebody on site to cover Joey Calcaterra.
Yes.
Versus Darion Trammell
Yes.
in the NCAA championship game.
Yeah.
UConn, San Diego State, 2 Marin kids.
Exactly.
Today, the IJ doesn't have somebody.
Doesn't have the resources, the manpower to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
as simple as. But if that had happened in our era where we had that thing, they would have sent me to the Final Four. I would have been watching those guys and talking to them every day. I know that during that period of time, what we would probably have done is arranged them to do a diary for the IJ.
Right.
Where basically they would sit down and I would tape record their conversation. Okay, what did you do today? Tell me about your day. And I would type it up and send it in. It would be their diary. It would be in the paper the next day.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the difference between today and then is, with social media and access to athletes.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what's going on now.
Yes.
Whereas before, we all relied on that. I mean, I remember getting up. I couldn't wait to see the IJ to see, all right,
what happened overnight.
How did the Giants do last night? I had to go to
what
bed.
happened overnight. That's what it was. And now, you can know instantly what's happening. You don't even need to do that.
Right.
The game story has sort of become, used to be a big thing when I was growing up. It was game story, the whole thing. But now everybody knows the results of the game story. You can, flick the wrist or look in the palm of your hand and look at your phone. You got a box score right there. Where previously you had to look to the next day's paper to see the box score.
Yeah.
Now you can get it instantaneously.
Right.
And you already know what the score is. You know what the results were, and basically that's sort of the journalism thing has changed from reporting to opinionating. That's where everything's gone. ESPN's gone that direction. All places cable have gone to opinion. That makes sense because the general stuff doesn't sell anymore because it's right there for you.
Right.
So now the opinion is more valued.
So we're sitting here a day after the Warriors eliminated the Rockets in Game 7. Amen. I had watched the game and then I rewatched the second half and I hadn't had quite enough. So I went to the ESPN app on my phone and I read the very detailed recap. And about, halfway through, I'm like, who wrote this?
Mm-hmm.
This seems like maybe it has a little chat GPT help.
Google Gemini.
I went up to the top and the byline was ESPN writer.
Yeah.
So is that it? Is AI now taking the game film and spitting out a recap?
It's possible. Yeah. I haven't, I'm not in the industry anymore to figure that out, but that's probably the case now. They can make it it's about getting the information out as quick as possible. And probably they can do it with AI and just do a game story, just feed them the information. They should know it. Or just take a regular AP story. They can make their own version and write it themselves.
I know that Max Preps, which, is the site and app that we use for high school sports.
Mm-hmm.
It is just, it takes the box score and spits out a story Duffy Bowers went 4 for 9.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah.
It is,
It's really poor writing.
There's no color. There's no color to
It's
it.
a robot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's probably what happens now at those stories.
Yeah.
So too bad. So back in the day, talk about prep coverage of the IJ.
Well, when we first started there, it was okay. But what we did is, remember Carl Catella?
Of course.
Carl had been working part-time. Well, we made him full-time, and his basic job was to cover preps.
Yes.
And we would fill in. If there was a big game, Carl would cover it, but if it was a couple of other big games, we'd have other reporters would be assigned a game.
Yeah.
And go from that. And if there was a championship game or a playoff game, then Carl and I or whoever else was doing the preps then would go to the game, and I would do a column type thing. So that's sort of when I jumped in. It's with the big event games type thing.
My parents still have some clippings because the IJ back in the day, the IJ, by the way, today does a great job covering preps.
They do. With the two
Ian
guys,
Ross, Derek Wilson, they're
Ian and
great.
Derek do a
And we-
tremendous job. Again, it's just two people. And I think I had told you that in the heyday at the IJ,
Yeah.
we had a full-time staff, full-time sports staff of 9.
Yeah.
Now it's 2.
Holly
So,
Willard does it as well. But back in the day, Duff, I don't even remember this, they had the box scores.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
So my parents still have some, Lavin 1 for 2 from the line.
Yeah.
Hey, I made it.
You got your name in the
Got my
paper.
name in the paper.
Yeah.
Hey, that's great. So we want to go through some of your favorite. You sent us this list of your favorite memories, which was awesome. And this will be a great episode for anybody who's between the age of 40 and 30. If you're 25, you might fall asleep. But okay,
Boomers.
we got to start with our favorite guy, Steve Lavin.
Yeah.
Who's, huge impact on me, huge impact on Duffy.
Yeah.
So you did an IJ feature with him when he was head coach at UCLA.
UCLA. Yeah. I got to know Steve when he was at Purdue.
Yeah.
And was an assistant there, or a graduate assistant.
Sure.
And then we sort of started hitting it off when he got to UCLA, and I started sort of keeping up track with him. In fact, when they went to the NCAA tournament and won,
Yep.
Steve did a diary for us. So Steve was up in Seattle,
the Kingdom.
and I would talk to him after the game, and he would tell me, I'd write down what his day was like, and he'd give me all the observation. It's in the paper the next day. So Steve and I became really good friends, and I really loved his family and got to know them very well. Cap and Mary were just wonderful people.
Yeah.
And so I can't remember the conversation come. This was shortly after I think it was the following year after he became the head coach when Jim Herrick was let go. And Jimmy Sire was on that staff.
Yep.
Steve Spencer was on that staff. So there's huge Marin connection.
Absolutely.
So I sort of popped the idea, I think it was brought to me. So do you think Steve Lavin would like to do sort of a day in a life type thing? And Steve said, yeah, sure. So me and Bobby Tong, the late Bobby Tong, great photographer for the IJ, we flew down to LA, and we get off the plane, and we immediately meet Steve, Cap, Pete Newell, and a friend of Pete's, I can't think of his name, the 4 of us, at a Chinese restaurant where they were having lunch. That's where we were going to hook up with them.
Yeah.
And the thing I remember about that is we're sitting down having lunch, and they start they got all these, they start diagramming plays on the table. They're taking soy sauce and salt and pepper shakers and moving it around like pieces.
Duffy sound familiar?
Yeah.
This is what Duffy and I do every time we have lunch.
So there's diagramming plays on there, and Bobby Tong sort of circling around taking photos of this, and I'm just writing down just a description and how intense they were about it. You weren't just going to have Chinese lunch, and these guys are diagramming plays and stopping off that. And immediately after that's over with, we follow Steve and Kat back to UCLA. There's a shoot around before. I think they were playing Oregon that night. So it's a shoot around that afternoon. So with Steve's speeding up the highway with the 405, and we're following him, and we get there and all this kind of stuff. And we get in. He gave us all access. So we were there before the game, at halftime, after the game, at practice. I followed him around. We had the shoot around, and then he had to do a function before the game for the boosters. And it was Michael and Kitty Dukakis were there on campus, and they were giving some sort of a speech, and Steve was asked to come over and talk to them.
Yeah.
So he comes over, introduces himself, this and that. And I remember we were walking away. He's with his dad. He turns to Dad. He goes, "Is that the presidential guy?" So Steve didn't know exactly who he was, but he knew it was important.
Yeah, young people. Michael Dukakis ran for president and did not didn't turn out well for him.
No, it didn't.
He had
turn
a
out well.
tank moment.
He had
Yes.
a tank moment.
Yes.
There's a picture of him sticking his head out of a tank, and he looks like a 7-year-old, and that was his political career. But Lav was an amazing. So all the stuff that you're talking about, Steve, is not.
Oh,
surprising.
it's just great. I mean, again, we had total access, and I remember
Yeah.
at halftime, Matt Barnes was on that team, and
Yep.
Matt Barnes was not happy with not playing, so he's basically during halftime he's having a shouting match with Matt Barnes, and Baron Davis was on the team. Baron Davis ended up getting a game-winning
Yep.
layup type thing. Then after the game, they have a post-game party type thing. What it is basically the staff and some boosters. They go across the street to some restaurant that stayed open at, reopens at 11 o'clock at night type
Yeah.
thing, and it's just a private dining type thing. And there's alcoholic beverages going around, and Steve ends up doing a Gene Katie imitation during the
seen
whole
it.
thing. Yeah. And then the next morning we get up, we say goodbye. Next morning we get up, and Steve at that time I think was living in Marina Del Rey. So Bob and I drove out there, and he's basically looking at game film, going through that, talking to his assistants, and planning the rest of the day type thing. So it was a blur this 24 hours, but it was so much packed into it.
Yeah.
And again, having the access to it, he was incredibly kind and to allow us to be in his world for 24 hours. And it's not, I've never seen anything like that before. And we won an award because of that too. So
Great.
Did he at any point, because I've coached the Lavin camps, did he just get in his stance for a period of time and
Sure he did.
slap the floor?
Yeah. Steve's always getting in his stance.
Forever.
Steve's always getting in his stance.
Forever. So
And Steve was very valuable to me too. And when they had the Lavin basketball camp up at Angwin at Pacific Union, John Wooden came in.
I was
one
just
year.
going to get to
And
that.
yeah, and so Steve invited me up, so I got to go up there and to actually do a one-on-one with John Wooden. Boy, talk about wow, chills.
So I was there
Yeah.
as a camper.
Yeah.
And I got my Pyramid of Success signed by John Wood.
Really? Oh,
I still
wow.
have it.
Yeah.
And
And you're
You know.
still climbing it too.
I'm still, I don't think I've achieved any of the tenets
Oh.
of the Pyramid of Success. Got some
You're still
work to
working
do.
the building blocks.
But
huh?
I have a piece of paper with Wooden's signature.
But
But that was, even as a young kid, you know who John Wooden is,
yes.
right? If you're a basketball fan.
Yes. Mhm.
And just the most influential, certainly the most influential basketball coach in history.
Yep.
And an incredible marriage of intellect and thoughtfulness along with
It's the fundamentals.
basketball skills and fundamentals,
Mhm.
right? So what was it like to interview him?
Well, so again, you're at awe in a sense.
Sure.
This is John Wooden type thing, and then
Yeah.
you have your list of questions you want to ask him, and and he's a kind and polite man too. I don't know if he was that way on the basketball court or in practice, but he was very gracious with me and gave me as much time as I wanted to, and I don't even remember what he said.
That's fine.
To be honest with you, but again, it was sort of an awe-inspiring moment, like the Mount Rushmore of interviews, and
Yeah.
I got to interview John Wooden, so.
Well, he's the classic example of discipline, not discipline in terms of berating players or being mean, but just having rules and standing by them. And there are so many great Wooden stories,
Yeah,
but
right.
actually Lav told me this one,
Yeah,
which is a famous one, which
Yeah.
is the Bill Walton story,
yeah. Mhm.
right? About
Mhm.
where Wooden had a rule on his team about facial hair.
Mhm.
And Bill Walton being a free spirit and a deadhead, and it was the 70s, and he
Mhm.
went into Wooden's office right before the NCAA tournament and said, "Coach, I want to grow out my beard. I feel I'm an individual, and I have
Yeah.
the right to do that." And Bill Walton, hands down, consensus player of the year, going to be the number 1 draft pick in the NBA,
Yeah.
best player in the world. Wooden says, "Bill, I really appreciate that, and we're going to miss you."
Yeah.
And Walton shaved. So that's great.
Did Lav ever tell you the story about the time that his dad met Wooden for the first time? That I guess this might have actually been at Purdue, but they were, Steve introduced his dad to John Wooden, and he introduced him as just an English teacher. At that time, I think Cap was either at Drake or was at
Yeah.
Dominican teaching English.
Yeah.
And John Wooden had been an English teacher.
That's great.
And so Steve says, just an English teacher. And he turns to me and goes, just an English teacher?
That's awesome. So recently, I had the incredible pleasure. I know you were there, Dave. We saw Chris Mullen come and speak in
Yes.
Marin.
Mm-hmm.
So let's hit on Run TMC, which
Wow.
is the original source of this,
The OG.
the OG.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
Tim Hardaway,
Yeah.
Mitch Richmond, Chris Mullen, Run TMC, discussed covering the Warriors at that time.
Well, until they came along, basically people would go to the Oracle Arena to see the other team play
Yeah,
or
'cause
the
the
other team
Warriors sucked.
stars.
Yeah.
You know, I can remember going early when Michael Jordan came in, and this is when.
Yeah.
I mean, he come in the access then to stars like Jordan. Basically, you go to the Bulls were coming in, you go into the locker room, and there would be Michael Jordan just sitting there in front of his locker,
Right.
and you got a crowd of 30 to 40 people around him right at his locker. Nowadays, they take him out in another room because they don't have do it. It was just the intimacy of doing the interviews then before the game were great. But basically, the Warriors fans or what basketball fans that were in the Bay Area would come to see the other team play. And then these guys came along, you know, and it just and you know, Nelly ball and just the excitement and
Yeah.
the pace of the game, the excitement they brought, just a tremendous run. And you know, I saw some pretty, you know, I left the IJ before I was pre staff. So
Yeah.
I never got to see the real good teams. I saw the We Believe team and Run TMC, and that was about it. Everything in between was sort of blur, and Donyell Marshall here, and you know, and Alton Lester here. And I was there when they brought in Ralph Sampson. Remember Ralph Sampson was traded because the knock on Nelly was that he couldn't coach a big man.
Right.
And it continued then.
Yep.
But when he went small ball, and he was everything, and then Tommy Tolbert was the first point forward as opposed to point guard.
The new ball.
And they just the pace of the game, and just the way they went, it was just a great way to score in the 120s, 130s. You know, it's none of this slow down stuff. Let's just score it.
Well, kids today, not to sound like old people, but kids today don't appreciate that. They just assume, the Bay Area kids today just assume, oh yeah, the Warriors are always good.
No.
I mean,
there
A
was
lot of our lives,
Yeah.
the Warriors were terrible.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
many years the Warriors were 20 and 62.
Yeah.
But you know, to give the Bay Area credit, the Warriors fans stuck with them. You're right. A lot of them came to the games to watch the other teams.
Right. And then the pendulum swung with that team.
Pendulum swung, and Don Nelson changed it all.
Yeah.
Right. He basically said, all right, this isn't working. We got to do something different.
Yeah.
And he changed the complexion of the NBA
Yeah.
by going small.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So talking Run TMC, I totally agree. Don Nelson
Yeah.
changed, a lot in the NBA. Incredible innovator. But what about the moment when it gets broken up and Mitch Richmond gets traded to the Kings? Take us back. What were your thoughts on that? Did you cover that trade?
Boy, yeah, I remember covering the trade and being disappointment more from Mitch's standpoint than anything else, because that was a pretty good group of players. They had something special, and I'm trying to remember who he traded for. Was that
Was it Billy Owens?
Billy Owens?
So
yeah.
here's an amazing
Very
thing
good.
that listeners answer this question yourselves as well. When Mully spoke at that event a couple weeks ago, do you know how many years Run TMC played together?
4. 3.
I think it was 3,
Yeah.
maybe even 2.
So our Run TMC could potentially outlast
podcast was
the
outlasted.
podcast. Well, not yet, but like
But
if we get 2 more seasons,
We were going to.
We're halfway there.
missed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But your point, Dave, is that the impact they
The
had.
impact they had. It
Yeah.
was so, I mean, my childhood, I think of Run TMC, it was like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So,
And they had to do it to get a big guy,
yeah.
right?
Right.
And
So
they
they
had to break
traded
it up.
They
yeah.
traded Mitch to get Billy Owens. And I was trying to remember, when was the Gugliotta trade? Was that later?
Was that with Weber?
Oh, that was Weber.
Yeah.
Right.
But Owens came in, and then they drafted
Yeah.
Weber, right?
They
And
drafted Weber.
and they had a brief period of time there where they really had their ceiling was probably higher than Run TMC,
Mhm.
but they couldn't.
Well, that was an interesting, I don't know, did you cover that Weber team? Because that was the story that I've heard is that was really Nelly and Weber. You had player and coach who did not see eye to eye.
That was a clashing of egos, is what it was.
And
yeah.
ultimately, the organization decided to stick with.
Weber always thought he got drafted and was going to be a power forward, and Nelly wanted to play center. That's
Right.
what it all came down to, basically.
Yeah.
And then when Weber went to the Kings, he was a power forward there.
And Vlade,
Yeah, exactly. Vlade was there, and that's where he prospered.
Yeah.
And that's for the best. That's the last best run by the Kings. You go back to this is how I differentiate our Warriors that we remember and the new Warriors now.
Yeah.
Who is Joe Smith?
Oh, boy.
Joe Smith was
Number
the number
one-
one. Was it number one?
number one
pick?
overall.
Yeah,
out of Maryland.
yeah, from Maryland. And no one, you mentioned his name. And who's that? He was the number one, the one overall.
Yeah,
Yeah, and nothing happened there.
nothing happened there.
Yeah.
The
Warriors-
other thing, just before we get away from that Billy Owens, Chris Webber team, the other thing that blew up that team was Billy Owens and the post-game buffet. They definitely saw eye to eye.
Billy wasn't missing many calories. Billy's a listener, I'm sure. So that'd be
Sorry, Billy. Great player. Great player. In
Another
Syracuse.
story that you highlighted. Actually, you sent it, or Duffy found this online. It's a great story. It was about the Branson teams, both the boys and
The
the
McNally
girls.
brothers. Yeah.
So on the boys' side, the McNally brothers with Coach Honeck.
Yeah.
And on the girls' side, Mike Fulton.
Yeah.
Winning the state title the same year. To talk about what you remember.
Yeah,
from that.
the cool story that I got to know Jonas and the McNally brothers. I actually got to know better later on down the road.
Yeah.
But that was the first state championship basketball game I had covered since that team in 1975 at Foxcroft Academy.
Oh, interesting.
And I had been in Colorado and Illinois before I came out here. So it was important to me because I'm back at the state championship. This is a huge thing.
Right.
Type thing. And the thing, but from a personal standpoint, the Mike Fulton angle and Mike going back to the Drake days and Mike not being on the team when they win the state championship.
Yep, in '82.
And this is like his, this is sort of his chance. He's finally getting a chance to win a state championship.
Yep.
And this is what, gee whiz, I can't even remember. It's like 20, 25 years later, something like that. It was a long time.
Yeah.
And, and so we went back into that and Mike was explaining how meaningful it was to him. And Mike's a great guy. And that's just a good group. And they played basketball the right way. Branson did, I thought. And it was good to see them get rewarded. And they basically made their way into MCAL from there, essentially, because I think they started out as sort of their own entity and then sort of became a powerhouse within MCAL.
Yeah, it's a great story.
Mhm.
And you also talk about how in the article how emotional Honeck was
Yes.
after that win, because
Yeah.
it was a really challenging year. It was a hard year. It was hard for him to get the kids to really buy in
Yes,
to what he
buy
was
into
trying
it,
to
yeah.
do.
Yeah. And you've been there.
And I've been there, and I get it. But they finally did. They kind of got it, and then
Yeah.
they gelled together.
Yeah.
And so there's that the success they had was so satisfying. It's a really great article. Very, very cool. Did you cover like high school hoops back then? I mean,
Yeah.
you were the opinion columnist, so it would just be those kind of special interest stories, right? That you
Yeah, I remember. Well, this is in basketball, but I remember when Novato High School went to the state championship football game, and I ended up doing a story on Lisa Weston. Lisa was sort of the team mom type thing, and I actually ran across that column. I don't know, maybe months ago, and I said, "Gee, I wrote that pretty well about the impact that she had on a team and how involved she was with the team." And I can remember the day they get selected to go to the state championship game. There was a party or a reception over there, and I think Travis Brackett knew beforehand that they had been selected, but they wanted to wait for the official announcement to come out.
Yeah.
And then the reaction of all the people in the room when they were announced that they were going to play Oceanside in the state championship game. And I go back to stories I've done. Kirsten McKnight, when I did a story on her when she was assistant basketball coach at Cal with Karen Horsmeyer.
Of course.
And doing that story, and I just saw Kirsten a few weeks ago. They were up the Dominican in
I was there.
tournament. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah,
So that was good to see that. I hadn't seen her for a long time. Just a good group of people you keep up with. I didn't see Will Venable in high school play basketball, but I saw him play basketball at Princeton, and then followed his career through baseball. And he winds up. I'm a big Red Sox fan. He winds up being the bench coach for the Red Sox, and now he's my best man at my wedding's a big White Sox fan, and
He's the manager of the White Sox.
And so he's going, "What do you know about Will Venable?" Well, let me tell you.
So going back to basketball, you mentioned Doug Donnellan invited you into his locker room.
Yeah.
He was the Drake coach, and that was you
was
mentioned this
probably-
was when the IJ was.
This is probably 2009. This is when things had gone. Gannett had sold the paper to the News Media Group, and at that time, the News Media Group was sort of the, I don't know, Darth Vader of journalism, and we just knew the cuts were coming and this and that, and they were downsizing and going down and down and down, and my best ability, or the reason I was brought here was to write, and essentially I ended up spending more time in the office and not getting out to write. And there was a game at Drake. I can't recall who they were playing. Drake won the game. And I apologize for saying Drake, but I, like most people, we grew up with Drake instead of Archie Williams. And I remember afterwards waiting outside the locker room to talk to Doug. And Doug comes out and sees me, and he goes, "Hey, come on inside here." And he takes me inside the locker room, and he basically introduces me to his whole team. And he says, "This is Dave Albee. He's a legend here, and this and that kind of stuff." And I was at, I was at the lowest point of my time at the IJ. That was a really rotten period of time for me.
23 years there.
Yeah, I've been, and I'd been there, I'd been there for 1986, and here it is 2009, and things have just gone downhill. And I'm thinking, I may get laid off at any point now because that's the way the industry's going. And Doug called me in, and it was a really feel-good moment for me. They probably didn't know who I was, but the fact of the matter is he took the time to introduce me there and really and sort of give me a verbal pat on the back type thing, and I really needed one right there. That was a real time, and I'll never forget Doug doing that. And I don't know if he knew I was down or not. I was, and it was a big pick-me-up for me to go in there and to leave there with a smile on my face. So
that's really cool.
Did they have, at that point, did they have the team room, with at Drake, it's this tight rectangular room with the lockers, and then up on the wall, they got the trophy,
I think that's right. I remember, again, guys coming off the gymnasium, and then their locker room was to the right. I do remember I was waiting outside, and they were either cheerleaders or somebody that was bringing food in, like, cookies and stuff like that afterwards. I remember that because I wanted to have a cookie, but it's a special moment. I mean, and I don't know if I ever told Doug that or not, but
well, hopefully,
but it meant a lot to me at that time. And it wasn't, it might've been maybe a month after that when I got called into the office, we're going to let you go.
Yeah.
And
that's a really cool story.
Yeah.
Sometimes those little things.
Yeah.
Near and dear to our heart. Talk about Brooke Smith. You covered Brooke with a hook.
Brooke with a hook. Yeah.
Brooke was a guest on our podcast. I coached Brooke in 8th grade.
Oh yeah, really? Yeah. Now, who takes the credit for the hook shot? I understand it was Mike Fulton.
It was Mike Fulton.
Okay. I was in her driveway.
Mike,
his driveway?
You can take that one. It's fine.
Yeah.
But Brooke's a phenomenal human. Was an amazing player. I mean, we talk about, our podcast, we've had a bunch of great coaches, a bunch of great players. I think probably best player ever out of Marin, pound for pound, Brooke Smith.
Could be, yeah.
I think the only player that has a professional title, right? She has a WNBA title with the Phoenix Mercury.
Yep. And I caught her there too.
Yes.
Yep.
I believe Joey Calcaterra won G League title with Las Vegas.
You're right.
I love it when he says that.
Today's trivia.
Fine.
But again, it was a situation where I did not see Brooke play in high school. Then she went to Duke.
Yeah.
And when she came back to Stanford, that's where I picked her up.
Okay.
Type thing and stuff, because she was now in the college pro realm that I was covering.
How was Tara Vanderveer was she, did you interact with her at all?
A little bit. Yeah. When I would talk to her about Brooke when she got her, in fact, when Brooke came back, I talked to her about Brooke coming back and why, because Tara thought she was going to have her the first time.
Yeah.
And she wound up going to Duke, and it worked out fantastic for her. And, we joke about Brooke with a hook, but basically whenever she scored with a hook, the PA announcer would say, "Brooke with a hook," type thing.
It's awesome.
And then I saw her with the Mercury when she got drafted there. I remember going up, they were playing not the Kings. They were, whatever the WNBA team was in Sacramento at the time.
The Monarchs.
The Monarchs, yes. Yeah. So I went up, she was playing up there, and I went up and saw her after a game and talked to her. And all I remember is Diana Taurasi looking at me like, "Who are you and why are you here?" type thing.
That sounds like Taurasi.
Yeah.
Sounds like DT.
Yeah. So.
Okay, Stanford men's NCAA Final Four in San Antonio in 1998. I mean, you wrote those words. I had a pit in my stomach of pang of, I miss those days.
Yeah.
Stanford basketball was really good, men's basketball, but that was, the Collins twins were freshmen, Tim Young, Chris Weems, Mark Madsen, the current Cal coach, Art Lee, who, by the way, is now a teacher at Branson. So talk about covering the Stanford men.
Oh, that was, because I remember that was just a whole journey. I think in that day, the NCAA required you to be at the site if you're going to cover the team. You had to go with them, and I can't remember where they played the opening round, but I couldn't make it there. But instead, I went to the first round games up at Arco Arena. So I technically qualified to be covering the tournament, and then I went from there, and they went to St. Louis to play, and that's when they beat Rhode Island in the first round, and Jim Herrick was Rhode Island's coach, and then they played Gene Cady and Purdue for the regional championship game. And at that time, Lavin was playing. God, Lav was with a team like in Florida with the UCLA. So I'm actually the night of the game, I'm talking to him on the phone. He's back there. They had lost, and Stanford had advanced.
Yeah.
And then we go from there to San Antonio, and I've covered World Series, I've covered Super Bowls, but I've never covered an event like the Final Four. And the biggest difference is it's all basketball fans. It's all passion. You go to the World Series, you go to the Super Bowl, it's a corporate feel.
Yep.
People come in, celebrities come in. This is pure basketball fans. And I remember I was sitting in the hotel lobby, and it's just all Kentucky fans everywhere, just going crazy. Yeah. And then the big arena going there, and they play Utah. Great game against Utah. They lost the game.
Remember it well.
Yeah, they lost the game, but I remember across the way that they seat all the coaches together that aren't playing are there.
Yeah.
And after that game was over, all the coaches rose up to their feet and gave a standing ovation for those two teams for that game. It was such a great game.
Andre Miller on that.
Andre Miller.
Yeah. Man, he was a good college player.
Keith Van Horn, I think.
Keith Van Horn, yep.
Yeah. That was awesome. A figure who comes up a lot when we talk about Marin sports legends is Pete Carroll.
Mm-hmm.
Pete's an interesting guy. Us 49er fans went through a period of time where we hated Pete Carroll.
Yeah.
Chomping his gum on the sideline, beating our team all the time.
But he was also the defensive coordinator for the 49ers before that.
I was D coordinator, of course. But he's a Marin guy. He's a Redwood grad.
Yep.
Grew up in, I think,
proud of his Marin roots.
Yes, absolutely. Was he college Marin? I think maybe even.
He went to college Marin, and then he went to Pacific.
UOP.
Yep.
Yeah. So you had a one-on-one with him back before he was with USC, before he was with Seattle. He was with the Patriots.
So the Patriots was coaching there.
You went out there. So back to your ancestral homeland in the Northeast.
Yeah. So I went back a few days early and said I was going to do a story with him. This is when it was Schaefer Stadium. This is before they built a new stadium.
Okay.
So his offices were right, basically the north end zone type thing.
Is that in Foxborough?
This is in Foxborough.
Okay. Yeah.
OUGH too. So we arranged a meeting there, and so I go into his office. And we sit down and we start talking. All of a sudden, Dave, you notice that picture behind me? And I look up on the wall. It's a huge, giant black and white photo. And I said, it looks so weird. I can't place it. And he goes, that's Bon Air before the Bon Air Center was tight. That's where we used to play Turkey Bowl game.
Oh, wow.
Type thing. So he brought the whole thing. So his Marin roots are right there, the whole thing.
That's really
like
cool.
That. And we had, a nice discussion there and talked about it. And I'd done a number of stories of him over the years and used to go up to Stinson Beach and draw plays in the sand and that kind of thing. And followed his career to USC and had a good thing there. He did a real nice thing for me. This is when he was at SC. And I was down in Southern California and decided to go over to a USC practice. Here's Snoop Dogg and here's Will Ferrell and all that kind of stuff in the heyday of that thing.
You fit right in, Snoop Dogg.
Yeah. So I'm talking to him. We had made arrangements to talk after practice. So we're walking back to his office, and the band's there. They're practicing or something like that, and they're all going crazy over him, walking by them, type like that. And he's going, who are these guys, type thing. But I remember we sat down, we talked for probably about 45 minutes, and my son was with me. And at that time, Drake was probably, I think, maybe 12, 13 years old. And we get done the interview, and he turns to Drake, my son, and he goes, your pop's been good to me. So Drake always remembered. Drake's about 32, 33 years old now, and a big Warriors fan, by the way.
Yeah.
And he remembers that moment. It meant a lot to me because it's basically Pete telling my son that I'm okay, type thing. So
those little kindnesses. That's really,
yeah.
I love those stories. Okay. first college football story for the IJ in 1986. I think you even mentioned this earlier. Your biggest challenge was learning how to pronounce and spell another Run CMC guest, Atu Tuatagaloa.
That was it. So I go again. I think I get hired in early August, late July, early August, and then Cal had a season opening game, and I get down there, and I always looked around to see who the Marin guys were from the area, and I had never met him, but I knew he went to Sarah Fell High School. And so and I joke about it, but that was the biggest challenge I had as an IJ reporter was being able to pronounce and spell Natu Tuatagaloa. And it took me a while, but I finally got around to do it. Now I can just rip it off like Joel Smith.
Well, if you're trying to box him out, you would have found that was a big challenge.
But I picked him up as Kenny. He was leading, and he became the leading quarterback in quarterback sacks at the time at Cal when I was there. And then he went into the NFL and played, and we would get caught up every year, off season or something like that. We'd get together at his house over in San Rafael and get caught up and I'd do a story about what's going on. And, that was the day he was sort of this tweener player type thing. The rookies would get paid well and the veterans would get paid well, and he was sort of in between.
Right.
And the money wasn't there, and it wasn't, and he had to jump around a little bit to get that money. But he had a pretty good, he had a very good NFL career.
Great career, and what an unbelievable human. Just a great guy. I saw him recently. Gracious, thoughtful.
Yeah,
great guy.
saw him at the Marin Athletic Foundation Hall of Fame. He was there.
And maybe 6 months ago, he was sitting, I believe, in that exact
same chair I am.
Same chair.
Same chair. Yeah.
Okay, were you in the press box at Candlestick during the earthquake?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
I had covered the first two games over in Oakland and was in the press box. And I remember, because I was a columnist, I was put outside, they put a makeshift press box in the upper deck, and basically it was just a bunch of tables type thing. And I was sitting, and I never had been. That was my first earthquake. It was an earthquake, and everything seems to be okay. And then you see, the TV start coming in. We all have TV sets up there now. You start seeing, the marina's on fire, the Bay Bridge has collapsed, the Cypress section on 880 is collapsing. Jesus Christ, this is unbelievable. And the thing I remember about that is they only had auxiliary lights, and we're all filing stories, and we're meeting with George. I can't think of the facilities guy for the Candlestick Park. We finally got him, and what are we going to do? What's happening here, and get the update on him. So people are filing their game stories basically in the dark in Candlestick. And one guy was sort of like 20 feet away from me. He took some game notes, took a lighter, and with one hand, he's got his game notes like a torch.
Wow.
Literally has a torch, so he can see his keyboard. He's typing with one hand, and he's got like a torch above that, so he can see. And that's when you didn't have the backlighting. This is the old Radio Shack report.
Right.
Computers we had, they were real small screens and no backlighting, so you needed to have light. And doing that, and I remember, God, it took me forever to get home that night. And then I get up. I think I got 2 hours sleep, and then I went back into the city because they had the press conference. The Faye Vincent had the press conference downtown and by candlelight. There's a press conference by candlelight. So
surreal.
It's just when you. Again, it takes you're trying to. There's a mind. Part of your mind is, okay, I got a reporter. I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. And the other half is you're processing what the hell just happened.
Right.
And the devastation. And have an understanding of what's going on. So.
Well, it's interesting so you being a non-California native.
Yeah.
That first earthquake. Those of us who grew up here are like, oh, it's another earthquake.
Right.
I mean, obviously that one was a big one. That was different. I remember it well.
Yeah, it was. But my initial sound that I heard after the rumbling was, when it stopped, was cheering. And again, that's their reaction. So I think, well, this is the earthquake. That was kind of cool, and they're cheering it, so it can't be that bad.
And then you see the
and then
images.
you start, like I said, when you start seeing the images coming out, it's like, wow. And everyone's like, I'm in the press boxes now, like staring, glazed look into the, what's going on here. You're just, a few miles away.
Okay. Speaking of the World Series, were you at Dodger Stadium when Kirk Gibson hit the home run?
Yeah. I love that.
I'm an A's fan.
Yeah.
Or it was.
Yeah.
One of the worst moments of my life.
Yeah. I obviously I'm sort of a neutral, but I'm a big Dennis Eckersley fan.
Yeah.
And always have been because I covered him when I was in Rockford. He was with the Cubs, and then I'm a Red Sox fan, and he
Of course,
was
that's
the
where
Red
it
Sox.
started.
So,
Yep.
and in fact, I interviewed him over in Woodland Hills at one point. Had breakfast with him with his big fiance Jennifer. But there was me and there was another gentleman named Mike Marino. Mike was the sports editor at the time. I think one of the 9 sports editors I had during my stint with the IJ. So Mike and I are standing behind home plate. At that time, there was an opening. It isn't there now, but there was an opening, basically like no seats from basically home plate back to the clubhouses. So we're basically standing there, and the Dodgers clubhouse is this way, and the A's clubhouse is this way, and we're standing there and we're watching it, and we're getting ready to prepare to do an A's victory story. He's going to write the game story. I'm going to write the column, and we'll probably focus on Canseco's home run or something like that. And then this happens. We don't hear the Vin Scully. We're just watching it, and we see it happens. And I remember Mike Marino turns to me and he goes, "I'll do Gibson, you do Eckersley." And that's how it went. So he went.
Thanks,
yeah, exactly. Mike. Yeah, well, yeah, that's fine. But and I tell the story. I saw some Boston Globe writers who went around at that period of time when they were in Oakland last time. So you got no idea what he did that night. He got Hall of Fame that night by being a losing pitcher that game, by the way he handled himself afterwards.
Class.
He just stood there and answered questions. And he was asked the same question 8 or 9 times. And he could have said, that's enough, guys. But he stayed there until everybody was done asking a question. Well, he must have been there for 40, 45 minutes.
For our younger listeners who weren't there, the A's were winning Game 1 of the World Series. Eckersley was the best closer in the game.
Yeah.
Kirk Gibson, who was a great player but was injured, could barely swing the bat.
Yeah.
And he pinch hits. And for some reason, I don't know who called the pitch.
Backdoor slider.
Eckersley goes off speed instead of just going gas. Yeah. And Gibson
backdoor slider. That was in
hits
scouting.
One of the most famous home runs, one of the most famous moments in sports history.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty
one-legged home run.
I mean, and then trots around the bases with one leg hobbling, doing his famous fist pump.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Okay, Jared Goff
Yeah.
is a name that maybe not everybody knows. So Jared Goff's a Marin guy, right? Was a former Major League Baseball catcher?
Catcher, yes. Came up as a third baseman, but wound up being a catcher.
Okay, catcher. Jerry's son is named Jared.
Yeah, we all know him.
He has played in the Super Bowl and Marin Catholic star, Cal star, Jared Goff, NFL quarterback. But you interviewed Jerry Goff after he tied the Major League Baseball record for pass balls in a game when he was with Houston. And you said you saw Jared walk as a toddler.
Yeah, this is before the first time I interviewed Jerry. He was living over in San Rafael. He and Nancy had renovated a house, or were renovating a house that either his parents or her parents had lived in, and they had just moved in. And Jared was maybe about a year old. I remember I was in the sunken living room, and I'm talking to Jerry, and Nancy brings Jared in. And he's just learning to walk. So that was sort of, I joked that I was one of the first people to see Jared Goff walk, and he ends up, with all these stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was the first time, because I think Jerry had got signed by the Pirates that off season. But when I interviewed him regarding the pass ball, he was with the Houston Astros, and he had played a getaway game in Montreal, is where it happened, in an Olympic Stadium. And he had 6 pass balls, and none of the pitchers were knuckleball pitchers, which, so you think usually with a pass balls, you think they're knuckleball pitchers, but none of them were knuckleball pitchers. Just had a bad game.
Just had a rough game.
So
and
he's
had
going,
a hole in his mitt.
Yeah. So he's going to Chicago the next day, and it's going to be I got a day off, and it's a day game the next day. So he goes out the night before, and he had a bunch of his buddies from San Rafael fly in with him. So they go out on Rush Street in Chicago, which is sort of the big,
a lot of bars.
Big bars, yeah. So he's out there with his buddies, and so they go into I can't remember, they go into a bar. He has to go to the bathroom. He goes with his buddy to a bathroom in front of the urinals, and in the old time things, they put newspaper clip, the front page of the newspaper or the sports section right in front of the urinal, so you can sit there and read the game stories. So Jerry's trying, going out to have a few beers and see his buddies and forget about the fiasco that happened the day before. He's trying to, get away from it as best he can. So he and his buddy go into the urinals. They're standing there, look straight ahead, and his buddy next to him says, "Don't look ahead. Don't Don't look. Don't look. And of course,
It's a
he
story.
looks. And right in this is Goff's gaff leads to,
Right.
Expos win or something like that. It's Goff in big letters right in front of him at the urinal type thing.
That's great.
So he told me that I called him up and he told I think that next day and he told me the story about that. And I thought it was sort of cool. Again, here's a guy that didn't have to talk to me in a horrible day, sets a dubious major league record, and yet he, took the time to talk to me and be honest with me and forthright and his son and gets a lot of those characters, it's got a lot of those qualities from him, from his dad. He's a good man.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's before we wrap up, let's talk about your book.
Yeah.
I think it's a really cool story. So give us a quick overview of the book. Last one out, turn out the lights. What is it?
Last one out of town, turn out the lights. That's a common refrain.
Would you like me to sign this?
Yeah, Duffy,
I don't know.
Duffy, please don't sign this book.
That's precious there. Okay? Passed around. What happened is this is the team that the very first team I covered. At that time,
Yep.
That was 1973, but the star player of that team was a guy named Kevin Nelson. And Foxcroft had no tradition whatsoever in basketball. They were a real good football school and still are, but they haven't. But the state championship they won that year was the only one they've won in basketball in the 200-year history of the school. And the only reason they won it was because of a controversial school district consolidation, which basically closed the school called Monson Academy, where Kevin Nelson was supposed to go to school. He was in 5th grade at the time. And instead, they closed the school and they bused all of these students, including Kevin Nelson, to Dover Foxcroft, 25 miles away. When Monson won a state championship in the small school category, it's a town of about 600 people. He lived in Southeast Monson, which had a population of 50. So, he said when they won the state championship in 1968, he's 5'11" and in 5th grade. He thinks he's going to go to Monson Academy and lead into multiple state championships. Within weeks, they have a vote and there's a consolidation happens and they're going to close Monson Academy the next year. So he ends up coming down to being bused down to Dover Foxcroft when he's in 8th grade and ends up being on the varsity as a freshman, and it winds up being basically the Cooper flag of Maine his senior year. He was the Maine State Basketball Player of the Year. And again, he came from a town of 50 people in the state of Maine. Great kid, grew to be 6'8", went to the University of Maine and played. Had a pretty good career there and very intelligent and thing. His brother was in my class. So basically the story's about him and also the coach who came. The coach who coached him was a guy named Skip Hansen. Skip Hansen went to school with my brother, my older brother, so I knew of him. Skip was a great basketball player, but he never played, when he played basketball, he never played in the Eastern Maine tournament. In his 4 years at Foxcroft Academy. So he goes away to school, to college. He gets out of college and he gets hired at Foxcroft Academy, his hometown. So he's coming back to his hometown of about 3,000 people to coach. And it's not easy coming back to your hometown. And he had to make so he's cutting people, both, he's got the Monson Foxcroft thing. He's going to have to cut Foxcroft kids to keep Monson kids on. And it's a tough thing there. You got that dynamic going on. Plus he knows most of the parents of all the players that he cuts at Foxcroft. So he goes through, he makes he made all these controversial decisions, but pretty much every single one of them, paid off, including one year he ended up kicking the 2 co-captains off the team 5 games into the season. And I tracked down those guys. They hadn't spoken for 25 years since the incident. They got caught drinking and came to practice and thought they were going to come to a regular practice. And the practice ended up being against the faculty that day. And the faculty could smell alcohol in their breath. So basically the coach is put in the corner of the whole thing and had to cut off the team. They were the 2 co-captains. One of them said that Dave, there's no doubt in my mind we would have won a state championship that year if we had still been on the team. And that was Kevin Nelson's sophomore year. And, just a lot of stories in there. And I know it's a story about Maine basketball and a different thing, but there's the sense of community is in this, the joy of the memories 50 years later. This is the 50th anniversary of that team winning the state championship, and the joy that they had that came from that and feeling that all over again. And again, I was in the middle of that because I was covering the team for the Piscataway Observer. And it's a feel-good story. It was very personal to me, obviously, because, I grew up wanting to see my high school win a state championship, and I ended up being, at the game, they do it and covering and writing about it and riding the bus back home with them to the joyous celebration in the, in a snowstorm in Maine when they get home. So just a great time.
So writing a book is a big deal, right? It takes, especially something like this, it's a lot of research, it's a lot of time.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how you decided to write this book, and had you been thinking about it for a while and thought, well, when it's 50 years, that's when I'll write it, or a year before that?
No, what happened was, and it always had been in the back of my mind, because I remember that championship, because it was personal to me. I had gone to school, but I always remember it, and I was there. And I thought about doing a book, and came close to doing a book with Lefty Gomez, came close to doing another book, and nothing that materialized. So I went back from my high school reunion back in Maine in 2022. So it's my 50th high school reunion. There was a friend of mine back there who got inducted into the Foxcroft Academy Athletic Hall of Fame. I used to play football, basketball, and baseball with him. And so he asked me, he knew I had been a sports writer. We hadn't seen each other like 40, 50 years. He asked me, hey, could you write a bio for me for the introduction to the Hall of Fame? I said, sure. So I wrote it like in 10 minutes. And he gets it, goes, Dave, this is great. How come you've never written a book? So he's in Connecticut, and I'm here, and we meet back there. And then he and I just start corresponding. Why don't you write a book? Why don't you write a book about Foxcroft? And we finally, he said, why don't you write about the 75 team? You were there. And this was like in November, October, not even that. Probably in like August of 2022. And then I started doing my first interviews. Skip Hansen and Kevin Nelson were the first time interviewing. Those were like late October of 2022. And then the book came out in February of this year. So, and you're right, Duffy, the amount of research going back 50 years, and you're asking people to remember things from 50 or 60 years ago. But the first chapter is one of my favorite chapters, Ode to the Slaters. That was Monson Academy's nickname, the Slaters. And it goes back to talk about all the old-time gymnasiums they played in back then. There was one place they played in, North Athens, and it really wasn't a high school gymnasium. It was a fire station where they played the high school games, and they played it on concrete floor, like a thing there. And Monson had a really great team that year. And again, in Maine, in the middle of winter, it's really incredibly warm inside and incredibly cold outside.
Right.
So the floor starts sweating, basically perspiring, gets wet. And their star player goes up for a layup, and he literally slides from the foul line all the way to the baseline underneath one of the fire trucks that's parked about 6 feet from the baseline. And so the coach takes all of his starters out and puts the reserves in. So he didn't want any of his players to get hurt. The referees got together and decided not to call traveling at all during the game, because they were slipping and sliding all over the place.
Extraneous surface.
But there's all kinds of stories about, like this room we're in here, that's the ceiling, and the basket was, about 3 feet below it type thing.
Right, low ceiling.
You had the shoot line drives.
Shoot line drives.
Yeah.
Yep. We've all played in those gyms.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Sounds like an awesome book.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun doing. I haven't laughed so much in a lot of years doing this book and recalling these stories and reminiscing about it and getting some wonderful responses. One of the coaches that I had in junior high school, he's now 94 years old, name's Eben DeWitt. And he had a junior high school level. They had a 78 game winning streak at one point. That was the one thing, they could win at the junior high level, but they couldn't win at the high school level.
Yeah.
So he sent me an email last week saying, hey, I read your book and I love it and this and that. And that's kind of cool. 94-year-old man calling me up and saying, hey, I love your book. So that's
great. And it seems like a lot of these themes in the book resonate.
They do. That's a thing. It's Maine specific. But you could be somebody in Montana or somebody in New Mexico or could relate to this same thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's go to crunch time. This is our end of the interview. End of the interview.
What's our record in crunch time?
Rattle things off. Okay. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm gonna go by memory.
I can pull it out.
I'll start with our tried and true one. Favorite gym in Marin. Favorite basketball gym in Marin.
Oh boy, because I didn't get in a lot of gyms. Drake's was good. I like the old rustic gyms. I don't like the newer gyms. So you'd go Tam, Drake.
Yeah.
Branson would be there. Tamales had a nice little high school gym.
Whoa, that's a deep cut. I played some games in that gym.
Yeah. So there's some cool gyms there.
Yeah. That's a good one.
It's you know how it is. There's the gym. The gym is there's a smell about a gym that it's not the look, it's the smell of the
Absolutely.
gym. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. How about, I'm going to jump to this one. Your all-time favorite best interview all time?
All time? Well, the one I like to talk about is Pete Maravich. And this is when I was working in Loveland, Colorado, and we had a situation where we had two sister newspapers, and we had a Saturday morning edition. And the Nuggets were playing at that time the Utah Jazz. Was he with New Orleans then? Utah. I think it was Utah Jazz on a Friday night, and I'm on deadline. So I'm writing a column for the next day. So I'm saying, okay, I'll have the column in by 10:30. This is how long I'm going to write it, and this is what it's going to be about. And at that time, before the column, Maravich was leading the NBA in scoring, and I grew up with him when Pistol Pete and LSU and all that kind of stuff. So okay, I'm committed. I'm going to get out and do a story on Maravich as soon as the game's over with. Well, Maravich is a horrible kid, just a horrible. I'm like 6'29" or something. Like just a horrible, awful game. But I had committed to writing this column beforehand because they were expecting it and that side, so I'm locked into it. So I go down afterwards in the visiting locker room at McNichols Arena at the time, and Maravich is in his room all by himself. And he's got a can of Coors in his hand. This is before his health nut days.
Yeah.
And this is before, Coors beer was big. This is like, we're talking late 70s. Yeah, late 70s. Coors beer was big. So he's got a Coors beer, and he's sitting by himself. His head's down. I sort of come up and sit next to him, and I turn to him, next to him, and I'm just trying to do an icebreaker type thing, right? I said, tough night tonight, huh? And he turns around and he looks at me, stares me in the face, and he goes, I thought I played the greatest game in the history of basketball tonight. So I'm thinking, this is not going to go well. Yeah. He doesn't want to talk to me, but I hung in. I asked him my questions and stuff, this and that. And we talked for maybe 10 minutes. It wasn't that long, but when we got done, he looks at me and he goes, kid, thanks for hanging in with me. So he knew I had a job to do, and he, as much as he didn't want to talk about a horrible game, he talked about it. So
yeah, that's great.
So that was cool. I remember that. That was cool. So
cool.
Favorite sports book of all time, your own notwithstanding.
Favorite sports book of all time. Movies, I could tell you.
Sports, make a movie.
Movies are easy. Hoosiers is by far, and that was sort of the book I wrote about. The book is very much it's Maine's version of Hoosiers is what it is. That's sort of the way I wrote it, and I love that movie. Just again, old time gymnasium, old time basketball, the Miracle team winning, Jimmy Chitwood, I'll make it. And there is actually a moment in that book where Kevin Nelson basically says his Jimmy Chitwood moment type thing. So that was, I still watch that and it started pissing me off when they were starting to charge for it around tournament time. It used to be free, and now now they know everyone else is watching it. But I'll, if I come by and it's on, I stop and watch it. So and then we lost Gene Hackman recently, and Norman Dale. That was a tough one.
Yep. All right, two more. Favorite Marin IJ medical columnist of all time.
You can tell that Duffy is leading at crunch time.
I planted this one.
Oh, really?
You don't have to answer
Dr.
that.
Ruth?
Good answer, Dave.
All right, we'll go to we usually finish with this one. Give us your favorite Marin restaurant, and if you like, as a bonus, favorite Petaluma restaurant.
Well, Marin, because I don't get down. I live in Petaluma, so I don't get down to Marin that much. But when I was living in Marin, when I first started, I went to the Hilltop. I don't know what it's called now, but
awesome.
The Hilltop was great.
In Nevada.
I think
go up there.
It's still the Hilltop, right?
Go up there on a Friday or Saturday night. You overlook Nevada on the lights and all that stuff.
The place there now I think it's called Ayahuasca.
Oh, that's what it's Ayahuasca. But I go up there.
Actually, a great restaurant.
Oh yeah. And
not a sponsor.
I don't think I've been there since Ayahuasca is there. But it used to be Hilltop Restaurant. I remember going to have the swordfish of the steak is what it was, and that was good. But other ones around it. Spinnakers. I always like Spinnakers.
Sausalito.
Because of the view. And Sausalito.
Love it.
That would be it. And again, the swordfish is a big thing for me. I don't eat a lot of. You grew up in Maine. I didn't eat a lot of seafood, but out here, swordfish is sort of my go-to dish, and you can find it in abundance out here. So, Petaluma is a place called Seared I go to now. It's a big steak place, but they have a great happy hour, so I generally go there at happy hour.
Great. Well, Dave, this has been so fun going down memory lane.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been at so many amazing,
it's
seminal moments. In sports history, you were there.
Yeah, like I said, we could talk. We talked for an hour. We could talk for 2 or 3 hours. I got all kinds of stories that I recall, and people I've met, great people I've met. And I was trying to look into the Marin Athletic Foundation Hall of Fame members, and at one point I think I had interviewed, seemed like about half of them. And the thing, I had done interviews with them or had covered them at some point. So that was sort of cool, Brett Carroll and Brian Price, all kinds of people.
Yeah,
Nick Rolovich.
Rolovich, of course.
Yeah. Nick was a good. I still have a T-shirt from Nick Rolovich that he got when he played with the Rhine Fire in the old World Football League. He brought me. He went there and played, and I think I had told you when I voted for the Heisman one year, I should have voted him. I should have had him on my ballot. He would have had at least one Heisman vote if I had thought ahead. And I remember turning the ballot in about a week later. I forgot Nick because he had a record-breaking year at Hawaii, and deserved the Heisman vote, and I was the person that probably should have given him it, and he could have taken that with him forever. I got a Heisman vote.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you so
This has
much
been great.
for
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this. It's great to reminisce, and like I said, down memory lane, and I don't do that often, but
good luck with the book too. It looks great. Love the cover here.
Some great people I've met here. I can remember going back to Marin Catholic before the Marin Catholic. When Larry Gondola was a coach there.
Oh yeah.
And Rich Woodall was a defensive coordinator, and how they sort of built they built sort of the foundation for the success they're having now.
Yeah.
And then they end up deciding to go to college in Marin to coach over there, and Larry was a great guy in terms, Larry would curse every once in a while. Well, no more than every once in a while, but he was very honest, forthright of what was going, and the challenge of going to college and Marin to coach football over there, and the challenges of keeping students in line. But those are good times. Good times.
Great. Thank you, Dave. Really appreciate you.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Burke's on his feet. He looks up and gives me a grin and says,
Hey dude, you too must be from Marin.